your
what we
thoughts
did.
on it, kind of your guttural reaction, and then what was your, your thoughts on it as an administrator?
Right. Okay, so I do remember now when I first heard about it, first of all, just the number of victims was so striking because 17, that is one of the highest in the history of the mass shootings in schools. And then also, just as the reports began to come out about him being a student there, and then later, just the reaction from the police, what happened, that there was a sheriff's deputy outside but did not go in to respond when the shots started being fired, and whatever the response was from inside of the school. And so what did happen immediately after that was we did meet as an administration and start talking about, so what can you learn from that particular situation? What is it that happened at that school that that could help prevent, that's probably way too strong of a word, but help just give you ideas about what it is that you can do to prepare so that that sort of thing doesn't happen here. No guarantees, but I think the first thing was just the amount of warning signs that were present with this person, and that what can we do to take very seriously students who may be considering violence against anybody at our school, or just taking that very seriously. The other thing is we talked with we did meet with our head of security here, Major Todd Morris, who is in charge of our security, but he also helps us anytime that we have any questions about any dangerous activity in the neighborhood or in the parking lots or anything like that. He is a great resource, and so we met with him about, tell us what is the protocol if something like that were to happen here. If there were shootings, what is it that we have in place? So, as a result of not just this shooting, but this school incident, but just school incidences in general, I think our students have noticed that we have, fencing now on the Westmoreland side, and you have to have your ID to get in. There's also, over the Mardi Gras break, we're going to be installing fencing, as long as the weather holds up, along the senior lot. So students will not be able to come into campus from the senior lot without having their ID get in. And that fencing is going to go across to the Union and then all the way to the street. So we're not a completely enclosed campus because we have the science building is across the street. We have a street access, but just anything that we can do, all you really want to do is just try to slow somebody down, right? We have cameras on the outside of the buildings, exteriors, parking lots. Our deputies have an iPad with them in the car at all times, so if Ms. Hodges were to call them and say, we just heard shots fired, that they can quickly get on the iPad and be able to see, I don't even remember how many cameras it is now, probably close to 40 cameras that we have around, that they can hopefully get visualized on something. But then there's always the drills and the things that we do about what is it that we do once there is an emergency inside of the school. And so, I guess there's two things that I'm always struck with. There is the tragedy of what happens, and when you realize and you read those circumstances, is that you can plan, but there's always going to be that one incident that may be the anomaly, right? There's something different that happens that makes that situation different from any of the previously known shootings, whether it be in schools or hospitals or banks or wherever it is. And then there's the always being vigilant about doing everything we can to protect our students, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, is protecting our students. So we do drills and we meet with our security team. I'm going to, and I have to pull the flyer, there is a not just school safety, but safety in general conference on March the 17th here in Baton Rouge that the Sheriff's Office is doing. So anytime that we can go and hear from other people about what are the best strategies, what are the best things that we can do in order to protect our students on our campus, I mean, that's what we have to do. I think the best resource, though, is our students. And we instituted last school year the Stop It app, which for the most part I feel has done what it's intended to do, which is to be able for students to anonymously report situations that they are uncomfortable with, whether it be bullying, whether it be somebody that's threatening to harm themselves, or somebody, I mean, we've had students that have reported uncomfortable, you know, this student is always drawing guns, or this student is always talking about death, you know, something along those lines. So I think we have to be proactive on any number of fronts. So it's not only, is it physical barriers, is it communication, enhancing communication, is it visual enhancement through cameras, is it having more deputies? I mean, there's just all sorts of ways that you can fight the threat of violence on your campus, and it's drills, right? So we're actually going to be having, you know, we're going to announce it. It's a lockdown drill within the next couple of weeks. We're going to have a lockdown drill, which is basically an intruder drill, right? What happens when we believe that there's an intruder on our campus? What do students do? Because that's a very different thing than a weather drill, right? Both are shelter in place, but if it's an intruder drill, then you're certainly not going to put kids in the hallway, right? We're going to stay sheltered, but we're going to do a very different thing. And you know, over time, our protocol for that has changed. It used to be that we used to tell students to put your cell phone, take it out of your pocket or your book sack, and put the cell phone on your desk if it's an intruder drill. And through our conversations with law enforcement and other people that are teaching us the most current methods based on things like the Marjorie Douglas shooting, is that kids need to have their cell phones with them, so that if you're in a classroom and that you know you can hear outside, right, that somebody is right outside of your classroom, they want the kids in that room, the teachers in that room, to be able to call law enforcement and say, he's in this hallway, because they would rather sift through a lot of maybe not 100% accurate information, but have information that is at least giving them something, rather than complete radio silence and they don't know anything that's going on. So all of these methods that we have and all of the strategies that we take are constantly evolving based on the various incidences that happen. And I think in this particular case, it really highlighted mental illness. If you see something, say something. If you know of a person, you read on social media that there's a threat or danger or violence, that you need to report it. Don't be afraid to report it. Report it to the right people, so that hopefully you know, something can be done in ahead of time, so that we never have to deal with the aftermath. And then always communicating with law enforcement in our city. And I think we have a really good relationship with law enforcement, but and they have their own protocols and their own drills that they go through. And you know, one of the things that we do is like have a campus map that we send to local law enforcement, so that, let's say a call were to come in and say there's an incident at Catholic High School, they can pull up our campus map and best access and what the buildings look like. So it's never just one thing, but I do know that whenever a situation like this happens, it forces us to have further conversations. It's not the only reason that we have conversations, because school safety is always on our radar. But you know, what is it that we do to talk about, okay, what happened in that particular situation? I have a conference with every teacher, and I've just started these in February. So I meet with each teacher, and one of the questions, and I give them, you know, a whole list of questions that we're going to be talking about during our conference. And one of the questions that I specifically have on that is, what about school safety? What suggestions, you know, as a classroom teacher, can you give me that would help our campus be safer for our students? So it's not just administration, it's not just police, it down to the grassroots level of the teachers in the classroom, and tell me what it is that we can do to help make this place safer. And then there's other sorts of things, like there's a company in Baton Rouge that a number of schools have used, that they install these, they call them blue boxes. And it's kind of like a fire drill, but it's they're located throughout school. So if there were to be, let's say a school, someone with a weapon, not just a shooter, but you know, someone with, let's just say any type of weapon, that alarm can be pulled, and they know exactly what hall that was pulled in, so that they have an idea about where that threat is. And so we're looking into that and trying to figure out other ways that we can improve the communication about if there were to be some type of incident. So those are the things that we're doing. It's always a work in progress. It's never just something that we put on the shelf. It's something that we're always talking about.